Hi friends, welcome you all to the CNS discussion. This discussion is basically based on the central nervous system, that is the brain tumors. As you all know, a recent classification on 16 has come up and most of us are not aware of actually the recent updates as well as the histopathological as the radiological criteria of these tumors. So me with Dr. Rajat will be discussing and making this tough topic simple for you. These topics are mostly important for the Central Institute exams and definitely for the upcoming NEET.
We all know that, as Dr. Praveen has said, that the tumor classification has changed. Previously, we used to talk only about on the basis of the origin at like astrocytes or glial. But as per recent WHO 2016 classification, they have said that the tumor classification should be based both on the histological criteria as well as on the genetics. So it will be our attempt as a part of DBMCI to take care of all the kind of prospective questions that may be asked in the Central Institute exams as well as in the NEET exam. So we will be starting with this topic.
Exactly, sir. I'll just inform my students here that previously a tumor which was said to be arising from, say, glial cells, they believe the tumor not actually come from astrocytes, but a primitive cell which may differentiate to the astrocytes.
Yeah.
So, as sir said, this is basically dependent on the two things. Number one, that is the mutated DNA, and second, IHC. So, these are two major criteria on which WHO 1216 classification is based on. So, sir, please.
Okay. So basically, if you see that this is the classification system, but I don't think that in the exam somebody is going to go to the details of the classification system. Most of the time, the question that they ask is the radiological part and the pathological part. So we will take care of the tumors or the common tumors which are asked in the exam. One of the commonest tumor which we have seen that they are asking in the exam is astrocytes or the astrocytomas. So as we all know that astrocytoma, like if I go back to some simple questions which are asked in the NEET and which are controversial also. Now if you see the adults and the pediatric, if they ask you the most common brain tumor, it is a secondary. But if they ask you most common primary brain tumor, so they are usually not originating actually from the brain, they are originating from the meninges, and as per the radiology books and the medicine books also, it is considered to be meningioma.
Sure.
Okay. But if they specifically ask you most common malignant tumor of the brain, then it will be glioblastoma multiforme, which is a subtype of astrocytoma. Okay. So going back to the radiological features, see this. So this is, as you can all see in this particular image, that you can see that this is a CT scan of the brain, where you can see that there is a cystic lesion in the brain parenchyma. All this, that black color structure that you could see is the cystic areas, whereas there is a nodular eccentric enhancement. Okay, so if you see these lesions, when you have a cystic component with eccentric nodular enhancement, and particularly in the cerebellar hemisphere, this is very diagnostic for pilocytic astrocytoma, which is a WHO grade 1 tumor. Same patient or a same tumor in a different patient, where we are seeing an MRI image. As you can see the MRI image, the first image is a sagittal and coronal T1 and T2 weighted MRI, where you could see that again on a T2 weighted MRI you could see that there is a cystic tumor with eccentric nodular component, whereas in the lower images you can see the axial and the coronal images showing the enhancement of the nodular component. Okay, again very categorical or very characteristic for pilocytic astrocytoma. A subtype of astrocytoma that we characteristically see in tuberous sclerotic patient, as you could see in the first image where you could see the non-contrast CT showing calcifications at the ependymal or at the ventricular lining, which is a classical subependymal calcific nodule, and in the same patient, if you go slightly down, you could see that there is gross, and you could see that there is a tumor at the foramen of Monro showing enhancement, a classical for subependymal giant cell astrocytoma, which is a classical for tuberous sclerosis. Okay, on this FLAIR MRI image, you could see that areas of alter signal intensity which are called as cortical tubers, again specific feature for tuberous sclerosis.
Now friend, let's move to the pathological part aspect here. Now before you start understanding this, please understand that it's coming from a glial cell. Astrocyte is basically coming from glial cells. So when you come to the grading of WHO, as we discussed beforehand, there are 4 grades of astrocytoma. So grade 1 is being called as pilocytic. So because it's grade 1, it will be benign. Grade 2 will be diffuse. Grade 3 will be a more malignant form of this, which is called as anaplastic. And grade 4 will be glioblastoma. That will be our next topic. So when you understand it's a grade 1, you should understand it should be a benign tumor. Look at this gross morphology. What you're seeing here basically is this, there is a localized lesion here. Okay, this is basically a cerebellum part, and this is a localized lesion here. Now on the other side, here you see in this image, this actually is a localized tumor. So which says it's towards a benign component. When you look at this arrow marked area, this basically is a eosinophilic granular body. So eosinophilic means pinkish color. Okay. Now always remember, pilocytic will have a biphasic area. Biphasic means a part will have a cell, a part will have cysts. So if you come to the next slide, you see you see this dark pinkish area, this dark pink, this actually is a corkscrew. The corkscrew is like when you, cork, I'll say wooden cork that you put on a bottle. This looks like that, isn't it? This one. This pinkish color is called as Rosenthal fibers. You will recall that these Rosenthal fibers are eosinophilic inclusions inside an astrocytes. They again are a very important component. Now when you see this fibrils, you see this fibrils, this long fibrils. Now and there are some cells here. This blue one is a cell. The fibril along with the cell is called as bipolar cell. Okay, and on the other image again I have marked already, that is a Rosenthal fiber. One more image that again is showing you a eosinophilic granular body. To sum up this, I will say 3 things you should know: bipolar cells, eosinophilic granular body as being seen here, and the corkscrew shape that is called as Rosenthal fibers. This actually is a variant I just thought of sharing with you. This is a gemastocytic astrocytoma. It's a variant of diffuse astrocytoma. When you look at these cells, you will be recalled of plasma cells with an eccentric cytoplasm, but the difference being these have pinkish colored cytoplasm. When you see this, it's a type of gemastocyte. Doesn't have a lot of prognostic significance though, but can be an image-based question.
On the other hand, if you see this particular image, again we could see the 2 images in front of you. The one that is on this side is a non-contrast CT, and the one that you could see on this side is a contrast enhanced CT scan. Now you could see on the non-contrast CT, you can't appreciate a tumor, but you can see a diffusely infiltrating kind of lesion with the areas of hypodensity within, and it is going mass effect. As you could see that there is a midline shift. Whereas in this contrast enhanced CT, you could see that this tumor is showing central necrotic component. All this non-enhancing component in the center is the central necrotic component with peripheral enhancement. Now, though the necrosis, Dr. Praveen will talk about the necrosis, how does you see necrosis in pathology,
Sure.
But necrosis is a hallmark feature of a high-grade tumor, and and in radiology this is considered to be pathognomonic for glioblastoma multiforme. Another patient, as you could see, another patient that you could see is that again, if you see in this particular image, that you could see a peripherally enhancing lesion with non-enhancing central component. Going by this image, sometime it comes to my mind that it might be an abscess also, because an abscess also shows necrosis. So on the radiology, sometime we take the help of these kind of graphs, which are spectroscopy, and when you see such a high choline peak, which is again a diagnostic feature of increased mitosis and increased cell division, again a hallmark feature of malignancy. Another patient which you could see that the non-enhancing central component consistent with necrosis, but a very peculiar feature that is happening is that this tumor is crossing the midline. This is crossing the midline. If I just go back to the crossing the midline, and a classical butterfly glioma, which is again a glioblastoma multiforme.
Now friends, as sir told, look, it's a necrosis. I was always telling you about necrosis. I told you it's a grade 4 astrocytoma. Being a grade 4, it should be malignant. And any malignant tumor should always show you increased necrosis, increased vascularity, and increased mitotic rate. The 3 features always you will find in a malignant tumor. Now this gross morphology, you see, this basically is showing a whole area of necrosed tumor. And as just showed you in the previous image, that was showing a butterfly image, this tumor is spreading to the other hemisphere, and therefore being called as butterfly tumor. When you look at this microscopy, this pinkish area, I've already marked this pink area, this pinkish area in between, I will say this pink area. this is actually how necrosis sees. The necrosis is actually a pinkish eosinophilic area without any cell outline. And this necrosis is like a serpentine, okay? And it is actually in a zone of hypercellularity. These all are cells around them, the tumor cells. So between a tumor cell, when you see an area of necrosis, this is called as pseudo-palisading. Again, a very frequently asked MCQ, pseudo-palisading. Now this image again is just to show you the necrotic area. This area is basically the necrosis. I'm writing already NE. This area is the necrosis. Why necrosis? Pinkish color and loss of cell outline. And that area, where written VP, that area is basically a vessel proliferation. Two things again are hallmark: vessel proliferation and necrosis. This becomes towards the malignant, that is glioblastoma multiforme.
Moving on to the next tumor, as you could see that there are two images that basically I am showing you. The two images which are together is one tumor, and this image is another tumor. And I think all of you can easily appreciate that I am trying to show you the CT images where there is a tumor in the frontal lobe and it is within the brain parenchyma, and on this non-contrast CT, these white structures that you could see are calcifications. Also very well appreciated in this particular image. So the moment you see an intraparenchymal tumor predominantly in the frontal lobe, though they may be seen in any other lobe, but frontal lobe, intraparenchymal tumor with calcification, the first thing that should come to my mind is oligodendroglioma.
So oligodendroglioma, this tumor is actually a WHO grade 2 tumor. So grade 2 means not actually malignant, not actually benign, something between it. On this left side of the image is on this area, which is arrow marked area, these basically are the perinuclear halos. The perinuclear halos are called as fried egg appearance. Recall that a bone marrow biopsy showing the same appearance is a hairy cell leukemia. That again is a MCQ. On the other image, this area, this again pink area, see this pinkish area, all those pink area are basically vessel proliferation. So slight amount of vessel proliferation along with the fried egg appearance is definitely a feature of oligodendrogliomas.
Moving on to the next tumor, so what we can appreciate in these particular images. So as you could see that there are three images in different plane. The first image is a T2 sagittal image. Why it's T2 image? You can see that the fluid is white, whereas this is a post-contrast T1 axial image and coronal image. As you could see that there is a tumor filling the fourth ventricle in the sagittal image, and you can see that it is slightly going down, whereas on this transverse image you can see that this tumor is extending laterally along the foramen of Luschka. So if you see a tumor which is originating from the lining of the fourth ventricle and extending along the recesses Luschka, the first thing that should come to my mind is it's a ependymoma. That's a classical MRI appearance of an ependymoma. The other differential is a medulloblastoma, which is also seen nearly that. But please remember, a medulloblastoma will be originating from the cerebellar vermis. So that will not be in this location, that will be slightly posterior, where within the cerebellar hemisphere.
Friends, now you understand this is actually a ependymoma. That means it's coming from ependymal cell. And what do ependymal cells do? They basically line the ventricles and spinal canal. So obviously the tumor will be either in the spinal canal or in the ventricles. So MCQ wise, what is very important here is that in children you see basically it is in the fourth ventricle, and usually in adult it is seen in the spinal canal. Now this actually is a tumor. You can see the posterior fossa. On the right side, that basically is showing you this area. Just show this with the arrow. This actually are the rosettes. Now remember, a very important MCQ here. A rosette is seen in ependymoma and some other tumors also, but this rosette is actually a true rosette because it's having a empty central lumen. Now most of the students do it wrong. What they think is when a rosette has something in between, they think it's a pseudo rosette. Okay. So actually when something is completely empty, then it is a true rosette. This you see is actually showing a red color area. That red area, this red area is basically a vessels. And again, because tumor cells are around them, hence you call it rosette. But because there are vessels inside it, true or pseudo, it should be pseudo rosette. And therefore it is being called as perivascular pseudo rosette, a finding of ependymoma. This again is a high magnification of the same thing. You can very clearly see this rosette, round areas of rosettes, and look at the empty area, and hence being called as true ependymal rosette. So just to confirm, it has both true ependymal rosette as well as pseudo rosette, which is around the vessels. Both of them are seen in ependymoma.
And here is the most common primary brain tumor, meningioma. If you see, I have got two patients for you. The patient on this side is a CT scan. As you could see that this is the bone and this bone is appearing thickened. And most of the tumor, when they touches a bone, they cause erosion. Whereas meningioma is one tumor which causes thickening of the surrounding bone, and this phenomena is called as hyperostosis. Whereas on this side, if you could see that this tumor, because it is originating from the dura, it causes thickening of the dura which tapers gradually, which has been called as dural tail sign. So hyperostosis of the bone on CT, dural tail sign on MR. There is one more, angiography. Because it's a highly vascular tumor, tumor blush comes early and goes late, and this has been described as mother-in-law sign. So three important signs of meningioma.
That's a wonderful thing, mother-in-law sign. Okay, now friend, look at this tumor. This basically is coming from again the meningeal layer. The actual cell from it comes, the cell of origin is an arachnoid cap cells. Remember this, okay? The cell of origin is different. So it's called as arachnoid cap cell. In MCQ, it is also comes as a meningomesothelial cell, okay? Now because it comes from a layer of meninges, it impinges on the brain actually. Microscopically, we all are actually accomplished to see a Samoa body. But remember, there's some other varieties which can be seen, and one of them is this hypercellular area, which actually is called as meningomesothelial variety. On the other side, you can see this huge amount of collagen, and hence called as fibroblastic or a fibrous variety. Apart from this, something is in between. This actually is called as transitional. Now, what you notice is basically it has cells, and around the cell there are round collagen fibers. So when there are cells and around a collagen, it gives a whorl-like appearance. Both of them, fibroblastic as well as the meningothelial variety, gives a common variety called as transitional variety. On the other side, these all very frequently asked image-based question. You cannot go to a exam hall without looking at this. These are Samoma bodies, which basically are dystrophic calcifications in a tumor. Why it is called as Samoma? Basically, Samoma means sand. And look at this round concentric calcifications. They will remind you of the sand beaches or the sand dunes in the desert, and hence it is called as Samoma body, the sand-like bodies. Okay.
Okay, and this we could see that the most common tumor in the infant or 0 to 1 to 3 or 1 to 4 year of age, which is a medulloblastoma, and which is originating from the cerebellar vermis. Please remember, it is different from ependymoma. Though on MRI they may look slightly similar, but the point to be noted that ependymoma is originating from the fourth ventricle, and because it is originating from the ependymal lining of the fourth ventricle, the classical word that will be written in the MCQ that it is extending along the foramen of Luschka or the foramen of Megendi, whereas this is originating from the cerebellum, predominantly from the cerebellum vermis, so it will not be in the ventricle, so it is just posterior to that, and this is a classical medulloblastoma. Now please remember, here there is a small catch. If they will ask you most common tumor in children in less than 3 years, less than 4 years, then it will be an embryonal cell tumor, which is a medulloblastoma. But if they ask the overall childhood, then it is not medulloblastoma, then it is pilocytic astrocytoma.
Medulloblastoma, remember, it's a grade 4 WHO tumor. Grade 4 means malignant, straight away malignant. It is, as a sir said, it is most common malignant tumor seen in children and very classically seen less than 3 years of age. Medulloblastoma, don't go by the name. It is not coming from medulla, it actually comes from the cerebellum. So this tumor, this whitish area here is actually a medulloblastoma. This whole thing is a medulloblastoma. And on the right side, what you see are basically the tumor cells which are spread out like a syncytium. These are basically the small round blue cells. Small round blue cell tumor are many of them. Like neuroblastoma is a small round blue cell tumor. Medulloblastoma is a small round blue cell tumor. Wilms tumor is also a small round blue cell tumor. So what makes medulloblastoma different is sometimes medulloblastoma differentiates into these round structures called as Homer-Wright rosettes. The Homer-Wright rosette basically have these round structures, as you see these roundish areas, and inside the round area you can see this pink area. This pink area is basically called as neuropil. Neuropil are derived actually from the nerve glial cells. So because they have an undifferentiated origin, there are some neural secretions coming up. And around them, the small round blue cells come up, and hence called as Homer-Wright rosette. Remember, for MCQ purpose, this is also seen in neuroblastoma and also seen in Ewing sarcoma, and hence they all are together called as PNETs, primitive neuroendocrine tumors. Medulloblastoma might show you sometimes a nodular pattern. It's not a very common variety though. And why nodular? Because around these nodules there are some collagen fibers, which is being proved on the right side by reticulin staining.
some less common tumors, but if asked, they will be a boon for you. As you could see that that's a sagittal and the coronal image, and in this coronal image you could see that there is a cystic bubbly kind of appearance is seen in the medial temporal lobe, and the corresponding sagittal image again in the region of the hippocampus, as you could see. And we also know that the hippocampus is arranged obliquely, though that's not a topic here, but we know, and in order to see hippocampal sclerosis, we don't take the right coronal scan, we take an oblique coronal scan in the epilepsy protocol. So that's again a bubbly kind of tumor, a cystic tumor in the medial temporal lobe, and there is no edema in this. Now this tumor is basically a developmental malformation or a developmental neoplasm, which is called as DNET, dysembryoplastic neuroepithelial tumor. Now why this tumor is important? That because, as I said, it's more of a developmental malformation, and the hallmark feature of this is that these are very, very slow growing tumor, and they don't have a mass effect, they don't have an edema, but it's an important cause of epilepsy. Okay, so just see a bubbly, if you see this word, a bubbly appearance or a bubbly tumor, no edema, think of a slow growing tumor, and the first thing that should come to your mind is a DNET.
So DNET, as sir told, is a dysembryoplastic tumor, sir.
Another image, as you can see, that most commonly they are seen in the temporal lobe, but they can be seen in any other part of the brain. And as you could see again, the different images, the T1, T2 and the FLAIR images, where you could see that there is a cystic appearing tumor. But the hallmark feature is, as you could see in the FLAIR images, that there is just a tumor. And usually if you see such a big tumor, it often has got a lot of edema, whereas a DNET is characterized by absence of edema. So there is no edema in a DNET.
It's actually a neural tumor, remember friends. Neural tumors. Neural tumors, one of them is DNET, that is a dysembryoplastic neuroepithelial tumor. Others are ganglioneuroma and neurocytomas. Out of them, grade 1 tumor is DNET. Grade 1 means towards benign. Okay, what you see here is basically a mucopolysaccharide areas, and around which these are basically the huge number of multicellularity, the huge number of cells, tumor cells around. Now what you see on the other side, this is important. Now you see this dark bluish area, that dark blue area are actually well differentiated neurons. Now some of the neurons become dysplastic during development, and that is what causes the main problem of epilepsy that occurs in this age group. Okay, now what you see basically are called as neurons floating in a mucopolysaccharide areas, and hence called as floating neurons. Floating neurons can come as an MCQ seen in DNET. So floating neurons seen in a neuron basically in a mucopolysaccharide setup.
Okay, so this is, there is a lot of queries on this particular part about a brain tumor, which is a schwannoma. So please remember, schwannomas are a peripheral nerve sheath tumors, and we get a lot of queries on our Facebook page also. So please remember, most common site of intracranial schwannoma is 8th nerve. Okay, so we know that there are 12 cranial nerves, we know the motor, we know the sensory, we know the mixed. So please remember, in general, the schwannomas commonly originate from the sensory nerves. But if you see the sensory nerve, there are 3 sensory nerves, 1, 2, 8. 1 and 2, they don't have a Schwann cells. So the first 2 nerves, they do not have a schwannoma. So the schwannomas are seen from 3rd to 12th nerve. Okay, now if somebody asks me most common site of schwannoma in the brain, or the most common intracranial schwannoma, or the most common nerve which is originating to the schwannoma is 8th nerve. If they say acoustic, it has to be 8th. But even if they don't say acoustic, if they say schwannoma, it is 8th nerve. Second most common nerve is trigeminal, which is the 5th nerve. Okay, now show you this schwannoma, it is also the most common tumor in the CP angle region, cerebellopontine angle region. And as you could see in this particular image, as we can see easily, we could see that there is a large enhancing tumor extending, as you could see, extending along the internal acoustic canal, a characteristic ice cream cone appearance. A characteristic ice cream cone appearance for vestibular schwannoma. Another patient, if you see, this time you could see the schwannoma on both the sides. So that's a bilateral ice cream cone appearance, bilateral acoustic schwannoma, diagnostic for neurofibromatosis type 2.
Friends, schwannoma is not coming from the nerve, it comes from a nerve sheath. Okay, the nerve tumors are neurocytoma, ganglioneuroma and the DNETs. These are the nerve sheath tumor. They are called as schwannoma. Most common now, as said, is cranial nerve 8. Now what you see in this, actually the histology, let's come to the histology part. Again, a very, I'll not say controversial, but if you're appearing for AIMS and not reading this question, you're missing a question. That's what we say in AIMS. These basically are the cellular areas and those areas which do not have cells. Look at this image, basically this histopathology. You can see some yellow marked arrows. The yellow marked arrows are basically showing you cells, and hence we call this Antony A areas. And then you see just I will say just beside it, there are some green arrows. The green arrow are the acellular areas and hence called as Antony B. And now look at the type of arrangement of cells in the Antony area. They're one below the other. This palisading arrangement of cells are called as Verroque bodies. So Antony A, Antony B and Verroque bodies are all seen in schwannomas.
Alright, so this is a slightly difficult image. If you see that, all of you can easily appreciate that this is a CT scan, and all of you can easily appreciate that there is a tumor with a calcification, and this is a midline tumor. Now the thing is that on a transverse image, sometimes it becomes difficult to identify the location of the tumor, and that is the biggest challenge that we face. But if you see carefully this particular tumor, now you can see that this is brainstem. Okay, this is brainstem. Posterior to the brainstem will be cerebellum, anterior to the brainstem will be prepontine cistern, and if you go further, anterior to the prepontine cistern, it will be sella. So this is just above the sella. If you see a tumor just above the sella, which is a supracellular tumor, and it has got these white areas, which are nothing but calcification. Most common supracellular tumor showing calcification has to be craniopharyngioma. And one of the very frequently asked question from the radiology part. I'm not sure whether the pathology they ask in the exam or not, but in radiology it's very frequently asked as an image or as a theoretical question. Most common supracellular tumor with calcification is craniopharyngioma.
Friends, craniopharyngioma will show you some areas which are having cells. This whole area are basically the squamous cells. Okay. Now, when you look at this area, the yellow arrow marked area, this basically are the squamous cell arranged like a palisade. Okay, and sorry, this area is this pinkish area. So this pink area is coming from squamous cells. You all know squamous cells showing a pinkish area will be keratin. This basically is a keratin. Because it doesn't show any nucleus, hence we call it wet keratin. Okay, so wet keratin along with the squamous cells being seen in this, I'll say a compacted area, is one of the characteristics that you see is craniopharyngioma. This blue arrow is called as striate reticulum. Striate reticulum is actually showing a loose spongy areas being seen in craniopharyngioma. So three things: wet keratin, okay, the striate reticulum, and the, I'll say, a whorl of squamous cells with a palisading appearance. These are the features of craniopharyngioma.
So again a slightly atypical tumor, but I have seen MCQs on this particular also, so we have to cover that also. Now I hope you can appreciate a tumor in this. It is not difficult to appreciate a tumor, and if you have a basic understanding of the MRI image, you can see that there is a large enhancing tumor. All that matters is whether you're able to locate the tumor or not. Okay, so I hope all of you can see that that's a brainstem. It is midbrain, and the tumor is just posterior to the midbrain. And immediately should come to my mind is that just posterior to the midbrain, you have got a small gland which is called as pineal gland. So there's a large enhancing tumor in the pineal gland, and if you notice this tumor carefully, you will see just above the pituitary, you will also see a small enhancing structure. So that basically that there is a tumor at a supracellular location and in the region of the pineal gland. If you see tumor, and this is what is called as germ axis. If you see a tumor along the germ axis or germline axis, it has to be one tumor. And more important and most common tumor of the pineal gland, if you see in radiology, the first thing that I think of is a germinoma or a pineal body germinoma.
So germinoma, basically friends, germinoma is actually germ cells. Okay. Now what you see in a testis, seminoma, what you see in ovary, dysgerminoma, is called as actually germinoma in a brain tumor. So this is actually a figure of dysgerminoma, the exactly same thing you will see as a germinoma in the brain. So cell rests in a brain of a germ cell will be called as germinoma. Germinoma, so what are the features of seminoma or a dysgerminoma? They basically are these whitish cells. The white cells are either called as seminoma cells or the dysgerminoma cells. White cell basically have a clear cytoplasm, and this is the nucleus with one or two prominent nuclei. This area here, this is actually a fibrous strand with the blue colored lymphocytic infiltrates in the strands. So what you see is a white polyhedral cell with a fibrous strand infiltrating with lymphocytes. seminoma, dysgerminoma or the germinoma in the brain will exactly be the same. And this slide we all appreciate can be an image based question in the upcoming exams.
So alright friends, these were the very frequently asked topic, and we have tried to touch upon some prospective or the potential questions also, and I hope this will be a very useful topic for all of you when we have an integration of radiology along with the path, because most of the students have some problem in just combining the two, and I hope that a question will be there in the exam, and that will be a rank deciding question for all of you. Okay, so best of luck from our side and as far as from the entire team of DBMCI. Okay, if you like this video, please do like it.
Do like it and do give us a valuable feedback. We may be able to solve or may be able to make some more videos for it.
Yeah, if you'll just put us your suggestions, we'll be making more of the radio path videos for the benefit of all our students.
Thank you, friend. Thanks a lot.
Thank you very much.